The story begins in silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise, where an old man wakes each morning before the sun, not because he needs to, but because sleep no longer holds him the way it once did. His house is small, tidy, and filled with objects that no longer belong to the present: photographs with faded edges, a coat that hasn't been worn in years, a clock that ticks louder than it should. Every movement he makes feels practiced, as if life has become a routine he memorized long ago. Outside, the world moves quickly, but inside his walls, time stands still, and loneliness sits quietly beside him like an old companion he never invited but learned to tolerate. Across the city, a young woman, an adult, full of energy but unsure where to place it, moves through life surrounded by people yet feels deeply unseen. Her days are loud, fast, and demanding, filled with expectations she never agreed to but somehow carries anyway. Friends talk, phones buzz, schedules overflow, yet when night arrives, she lies awake questioning whether any of it truly matters. She feels disconnected from the world she's supposed to fit into, wondering why everything meaningful feels so rushed and shallow. She is not broken, not weak, just searching for something real in a world that rarely slows down long enough to offer it. Their lives, so different in rhythm and direction, continue separately for a while, until one ordinary day changes everything. It happens without drama or intention, in a place neither of them considered important, a quiet public space where people pass without noticing each other. Their eyes meet briefly, not with curiosity, but with recognition, as if something familiar surfaced without explanation. A simple conversation begins, polite and cautious, the kind that usually ends quickly. But this one doesn't. Words come slowly, comfortably, without performance or pretense. Silence, when it appears, does not feel awkward. It feels earned. They part that day without promises or expectations, yet both carry the encounter with them longer than expected. The old man finds himself thinking about the way she listened, not just to his words, but to the pauses between them. The young woman is surprised by how safe she felt speaking without being rushed, without needing to impress or defend herself. When they meet again, it feels natural, almost inevitable, as if the world gently nudged them back toward each other. As days pass, their conversations deepen. He speaks of a life lived fully once, of love, loss, mistakes, and moments that mattered more in hindsight than they did at the time. She speaks of confusion, ambition, fear, and the quiet pressure of becoming someone she isn't sure she wants to be. They do not try to teach or fix each other. They simply listen. In his presence, she feels grounded. In hers, he feels awake. Slowly, something unfamiliar begins to grow, not rushed, not spoken aloud, but undeniably present. It is not passion at first, but connection. Respect. Emotional intimacy built on understanding rather than desire. They are careful, aware of the distance between their ages, aware of how the world would see them if it knew. Yet emotions do not ask permission before arriving, and neither of them can deny what they feel when they are together. The world, however, notices before they are ready. Glances linger longer than necessary. Whispers follow them. Friends ask questions that sound like concern but feel like judgment. The young woman is warned that she will regret it, that she doesn't understand what she's doing. The old man is reminded of his years, his place, and the expectations he should quietly accept. Doubt begins to creep in, not because their connection feels wrong, but because the pressure from outside grows heavier. Each day, eventually, fear speaks louder than honesty. The old man pulls away, not out of lack of love, but out of concern. He believes he is protecting her from a future filled with criticism and sacrifice. She feels abandoned, confused, and hurt, questioning whether what they shared was ever real or simply a moment of escape for them both. They separate without closure, carrying questions neither knows how to answer. Time passes differently when hearts are unsettled. The young woman tries to return to her old life, but it no longer fits the way it once did. Conversations feel empty. Ambitions feel hollow. She realizes that what she misses is not him alone, but the version of herself she was when she felt understood. The old man returns to his routine, but the silence is louder now, sharper, because he knows what it feels like to be seen again, and losing that feels heavier than loneliness ever did. When they meet again, it is not dramatic. There are no grand gestures or apologies that erase everything. There is only honesty. They speak openly, acknowledging fear, judgment, and uncertainty, but also admitting the truth they can no longer ignore. Love, they realize, does not promise ease. It promises meaning, and meaning, they decide, is worth choosing, even when the path forward is imperfect. The story does not end with fantasy or illusion. It ends with acceptance, of themselves, of each other, and of the reality they must face together. Their connection remains quiet, steady, and deeply human, built not on age or expectation, but on respect, consent, and emotional truth. As the final moments unfold, the narrator reflects softly on how love rarely arrives the way we expect it to, and how sometimes, the most unexpected connections are the ones that teach us what it truly means to feel alive. The screen fades slowly, leaving behind not answers, but a question that lingers long after the story ends. If love is honest, respectful, and real, does the world have the right to define it for us? The days that follow their reunion are quieter, slower, and more deliberate. Nothing is rushed anymore. They both understand that whatever this is, it must be handled with care. They meet in simple places, away from noise and expectation, where conversation can breathe. Sometimes they talk for hours, sometimes they sit in silence, watching the world pass by, learning that presence alone can be enough. The young woman begins to feel stronger in her choices, less apologetic for what brings her peace. The old man, in turn, feels a warmth he thought belonged only to memory, something steady that softens the sharp edges of time. Yet the world does not suddenly become kinder. Judgment remains, lingering in looks and comments that try to reduce their connection to something inappropriate or naive. There are moments when doubt returns, when the weight of opinion presses against them, testing their resolve. On those days, they remind each other of what they share, not fantasy, not rebellion, but understanding. He never tries to control her future, never asks her to sacrifice her dreams. She never tries to reclaim his past, never demands more than he can give. What binds them is choice, renewed each day with clarity and consent. The young woman begins to grow in ways she never anticipated. She speaks more honestly, sets firmer boundaries, and listens more deeply, not just to him, but to herself. The connection teaches her patience in a world obsessed with speed. For the old man, life feels fuller again, not because he is chasing youth, but because he is participating in the present. He starts writing again, something he abandoned years ago, recording thoughts he once believed no longer mattered. Through her eyes, he sees that his experiences still hold value. That wisdom does not expire simply because time has passed. There comes a moment, quiet but significant, when they acknowledge the reality they cannot escape. Time is not neutral, it moves differently for each of them. They speak of it openly, without fear or denial. There are no promises of forever, only promises of honesty. They agree that love does not require permanence to be meaningful. What matters is how deeply it is felt, how respectfully it is given, and how truthfully it is lived. As seasons change, their bond settles into something calm and resilient. It is not defined by intensity alone, but by trust. They support each other in practical ways, emotional ways, human ways. Friends who once judged begin to soften, not because they understand, but because they see consistency and care. Some never accept it, and that becomes something they learn to live with rather than fight against. In the final moments of the story, the camera lingers on small details, their hands resting near each other without urgency, shared laughter over ordinary moments, the comfort of knowing someone sees you fully. The narration reflects on how love often defies categories, how it appears where it is least expected, and how courage sometimes means choosing what feels right even when it cannot be easily explained. The story closes not with certainty, but with peace. Two people, from different chapters of life, walking forward with intention, aware of the limits yet grateful for the connection. The screen fades as the final thought settles in. Love is not measured by age, time, or approval, but by the sincerity with which two people choose to meet each other as they are. As time moves forward, their relationship becomes less about proving anything and more about simply existing together. The urgency fades, replaced by a quiet confidence that doesn't need explanation. They stop rehearsing answers for questions no one has the right to ask. Instead, they focus on the present moments that feel honest and grounding. Morning walks become a ritual, not because they are romantic, but because they are peaceful. Conversations drift from deep reflections to small observations about the world, and both learn that intimacy often lives in the ordinary. The young woman begins to notice how much she has changed. She is no longer searching endlessly for validation or direction. The connection has taught her to slow down, to listen inward, to value depth over noise. She realizes that love, when it is healthy, does not consume identity, it strengthens it. She continues building her life, her career, her friendships, without feeling like she must choose between independence and connection. He supports her from a place of encouragement, never possession, proud not because she belongs to him, but because she belongs to herself. For the old man, the days feel lighter. Age no longer feels like a quiet ending, but like a chapter still being written. He is more present with the world, more forgiving of himself. The regrets he once carried lose their grip as he learns that life does not stop offering meaning simply because time has passed. Loving her does not make him wish to be younger, it makes him grateful for every year that shaped him into someone capable of loving with patience and humility. There are difficult days, of course. Moments when fear resurfaces, fear of loss, of inevitable endings, of pain that cannot be avoided. They do not pretend these fears don't exist. Instead, they speak about them openly, acknowledging that love is not meant to protect us from hurt, but to remind us why vulnerability is worth the risk. In those moments, their bond deepens, not because problems disappear, but because honesty remains. As the story approaches its quiet conclusion, the focus shifts away from what others think and toward what truly matters. The world continues to move, judge, label, and rush, but their connection exists outside of that noise. It is not dramatic, not perfect, and not without limits, but it is real. And that, they come to understand, is enough. The final images linger gently, shared glances filled with understanding, comfortable silences, the soft acceptance that nothing lasts forever, yet everything meaningful leaves its mark. The narration closes on a simple truth, that love is not about how long two people walk together, but about how sincerely they choose to walk, even when the path is uncertain. The screen fades, leaving behind a feeling rather than an answer, inviting the audience to reflect on love not as a rule to be followed, but as a human experience to be respected. As weeks turn into months, their companionship becomes a rhythm rather than an event, a presence that colors their days without demanding attention. They develop small routines, sharing coffee in the quiet of morning light, reading together in companionable silence, walking through streets that have lost their urgency in their presence. Each act is simple, yet it carries weight, the gentle acknowledgement that someone is there, fully attentive, without expectation. They no longer need words to affirm what has already been quietly understood. The young woman notices how these moments shape her inner world. She is calmer, more deliberate in her choices, and more confident in her own voice. The connection has allowed her to shed layers of performative energy she carried for the sake of fitting in, revealing a version of herself she had almost forgotten. In the old man's presence, she experiences not only affection, but the quiet courage to embrace life on her own terms. The world may still be judgmental, but she no longer bends to its pressures as she once did. For him, the effect is equally profound. He moves through life with renewed awareness, noticing beauty in things previously overlooked, the way light falls across a street, the small kindnesses of strangers, the resilience of youth tempered by wisdom. His past losses, though never forgotten, feel lighter, not because they cease to matter, but because they no longer define the totality of his existence. Loving her does not erase time, it honors it, giving him a chance to engage fully with life again. Challenges continue to appear, subtle and persistent. Friends and family voice concerns in ways that test patience, while societal whispers of impropriety sometimes surface in moments of doubt. Rather than ignoring these pressures, they face them with frank conversation. They discuss fears, boundaries, and the practical realities of their relationship. In doing so, they reaffirm that their connection is built not on rebellion, but on mutual understanding and conscious choice. Through it all, a profound sense of mutual respect and admiration deepens. They support each other's ambitions and dreams, celebrate personal victories, and provide solace in moments of disappointment. Neither seeks to dominate or define the other, instead, they offer a mirror in which each can see the best of themselves. The young woman feels empowered, the old man feels enlivened, and together they create a shared space of trust that feels rare in a world so often dominated by judgment. As the narrative moves toward its quiet resolution, the story emphasizes endurance over spectacle. There are no grand declarations, no climactic gestures, just the steady presence of two people who have discovered the strength of vulnerability, the importance of choice, and the value of emotional honesty. They continue walking forward, not claiming perfection, not promising forever, but embracing the connection that sustains and transforms them both. The closing moments linger on subtle intimacy, a hand brushed against another's, a knowing glance, the silence of understanding that does not require explanation. The narration reflects that love, in its truest form, is less about social approval and more about fidelity to one's own heart. It is about seeing another fully and being seen in return, in spite of time, circumstance, or expectation. The screen slowly fades to soft light, leaving behind a reflection of life's quiet, enduring truths, that love can arrive unexpectedly, flourish respectfully, and leave a lasting imprint, not measured by years, but by depth, honesty, and presence. The seasons continue their steady cycle, and with them, the subtle shifts of their relationship. They move through life side by side, sometimes in conversation, sometimes in silence, learning the rhythm of each other's presence. Each day carries a quiet significance, shared laughter over small absurdities, thoughtful gestures that go unnoticed by anyone but the other, and moments when words are unnecessary because understanding has already passed between them. It is not the intensity of passion that defines their bond, but the constancy of care and attention, the shared acknowledgement of life's fleeting beauty. The young woman notices her perspective on the world changing. Patience, once elusive, has become part of her nature. Decisions that once felt urgent now unfold with deliberate thought. She discovers that life's richness does not lie solely in achievement or recognition, but in connection and awareness. The relationship has taught her that intimacy is not dependent on age, circumstance, or societal approval, but on mutual respect, empathy, and honesty. In learning to be seen fully by someone who values her for who she is, she learns to see herself with clarity and acceptance. For the old man, every day spent with her becomes a reminder that life continues to offer meaning, even in its later chapters. The lines on his face, the weight of years, and the memories of loss no longer feel burdens, they are evidence of a life lived deeply, capable of feeling again without fear. Her energy, her curiosity, and her fearless engagement with the world revitalize him, not because he longs to be young again, but because he sees the world freshly through her eyes. In her presence, he discovers joy not as nostalgia for the past, but as a conscious appreciation for the present. Inevitably, they face moments of tension and doubt. Outside pressures and social expectations never disappear entirely. At times, friends or acquaintances voice their disapproval, often unintentionally causing self-reflection or second-guessing. Yet, instead of letting these external judgments dictate their emotions, they meet these challenges together. They speak openly about fear, responsibility, and vulnerability, reaffirming the intentional nature of their connection. Every challenge met with honesty strengthens the bond, teaching them that enduring love is not immune to difficulty, but thrives in its navigation. Over time, the relationship matures into a quiet companionship that blends emotional intimacy with practical support. They celebrate each other's victories and comfort each other's losses. The young woman pursues her ambitions without constraint, knowing he respects and values her independence. The old man lives fully within his own life, enriched by the warmth and vitality she brings. Their partnership demonstrates that love is not about control or possession, but about enabling growth, providing support, and sharing life's journey with empathy and respect. In the story's reflective conclusion, the emphasis is on the ordinary yet profound aspects of life shared together, a warm touch in the morning, a knowing smile during shared moments, or the comfort of silent presence during challenging times. These seemingly mundane acts are imbued with significance because they are chosen freely, respected mutually, and lived sincerely. The narration reflects on how genuine love often defies societal norms, how it can arise between people of different ages or life experiences, and how its value lies not in public approval but in the authenticity of the connection. As the screen fades gently, the story leaves the audience with a resonant truth. Love is defined not by duration, appearance, or external validation, but by the depth of understanding, the honesty of intention, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. It is an enduring presence, quietly transformative, capable of bringing meaning and warmth into the lives of those willing to meet it fully. In the end, they walk forward together, not claiming perfection, not expecting permanence, but choosing, each day, to honor the bond.